Greetings, colleagues and friends from around the world. My name is Hopeton Dunn. I'm Professor of Communications Policy and Digital Media, first at the University of the West Indies in Jamaica, and then now at the University of Botswana, where I hold a concurrent appointment at the University of Johannesburg as Senior Research Associate. I'm very happy to share in this panel, and I want to thank Professor Herman Wasserman for pulling the whole thing together in this challenging and distracting time. I want to talk about a paper, an actual article that has been published in Annals of the ICA that deals with the issue of globalization and development. These are issues that I have been wrestling with and contemplating over some time. And what I'm doing in an experimental way now is trying to find analytical constructs that will enable me and my colleagues in the Global South and anywhere to deepen our understanding of the impact of globalization, the possibilities of globalization, and the issues that can allow us a greater level of visibility and presence in the world. The question of globalization is well understood in large measure. It is about the extent to which we can make the world appear smaller by virtue of the communication and the travel and the transport that is enabling us to be more integrated. But as we have seen from the COVID pandemic experience, this can be a two-edged sword. This very connectivity that we can celebrate as benefits in a lot of important ways can also enhance the transmissive power of a virus all around the world. But we have learned something else from this virus, and that is that its impact hits proportionately differently in different parts of the world and in different social and demographic groups. We know from experience in the United States, United Kingdom, and elsewhere that ethnic minorities and poorer people suffer disproportionately at the hand of this virus, although people of all classes and backgrounds do suffer and experience the virus. Well, in a way, globalization is a similar experience. It has a disproportionately beneficial effect in some quarters and a more deleterious and negative effect on the other. And in this particular case, I'm talking about its impact on countries of the Global South. That these countries are coming from a background of what Mbembe describes as the post-colony, which is a kind of colonial and hegemonic environment where the initiative, the productivity, and a lot of the capacity of these countries have been undermined. So part of this paper and this article is about how can the countries of the Global South recover a measure of their capacity, their productivity, how can they use the technologies of the time in order to enhance their own economic, social, and political presence in the world. Some suggest that part of that answer is the Fourth Industrial Revolution, 4IR. The World Economic Forum has prognosticated that a whole suite of new technologies, ranging from the Internet of Things, self-driving cars, quantum computing, a whole range of things, is part of what the fix is for our 21st century world. And in general principle, I do not disagree with that, but we cannot concentrate on those things without also realizing that a large part of the global community are nowhere near that kind of global agenda. So while that agenda still needs to be pursued, attention needs to be paid to what lots of other people in the world are having to contemplate. And again, we can say that this situation has been exposed by the COVID-19 experience. This disproportionate impact, where we are talking about the power of artificial intelligence, and as I've said, the power of quantum computing. So yes, AI for sure, but some of us are also saying we are not yet in a post-access society, and therefore we can turn it around sometimes and think about IA, which is internet access. So it should be both AI and IA, and that is what we argue in that paper, that what we need is a world in which acknowledgement is given of the countries of the global south. Now, I am in search, as I indicated, about constructs to analyze the situation as it exists. And one of the elements of the construct that I present in this article is the notion of resilience. Resilience is how something or some community or some persons can recover from a traumatic or shocking situation. How do you survive under constant, intense pressure? The scientific definition speaks to the ability of something to spring back into shape after being pushed out of shape. Essentially, when thought about in human terms, trauma. And this is what is, I would say, the definition of chattel slavery. I would say it's the definition of colonialism, and it is the definition of hegemony that so many countries have been through. So the idea of utilizing resilience is the idea of how can these societies pick themselves up and bounce back to make a useful contribution to the world and empower themselves using the technologies of the present era. Many of our colleague scholars have talked about and discussed this question of resilience. Westbury, for example, Ungar, others have spoken about this question of resilience, but it is an important part of the very mix that we're talking about. The second component is what I have described as globalization from within. This is a notion that says, if we do achieve a measure of resilience, we can bounce back and so on. What do we do with that energy and that capacity to now empower our society and ourselves? My argument is that it should not be a dependence on globalization that has emerged from outside of our societies, in the way, for example, that a lot of the traumatic experiences have emerged from outside of our societies, but that this should emerge from within and globalize in a positive and advantageous way to empower others and ourselves in the world. Globalization from within is saying that there are capacities that we have, there is acumen that we have, there is enterprise that we have in the global south. We can innovate and do not have to simply imitate and make a contribution even more than we are making now to the global environment. And that this can come at three essential levels. It can come at the level of the personal, where we say your thoughts and your ideas matter. They are valued, and we will say that to our young people all across the global south, indeed all across the world. So that's at the personal level. Then at the national level, globalization from within should involve a mobilization of the empowering forces in the nation to help with the productivity and the creativity and the output using the technologies, using the laws, using the regulations to help us along in the way that many other countries are doing. And then at the third level, we are talking about regional globalization from within, where harmonization of policies across different countries in the region can help to push this process further, faster in the world. And so the paper brings together the notion of resilience and the notion of globalization, but globalization from within, to say, let us empower ourselves in the way, for example, that those young innovators in Kenya have been able to develop this whole business of M-Pesa. Let us empower ourselves in the way that the Rastafari and the reggae music of Jamaica have been able to grow from within and expand globally to an influence that can be clearly attributed to its point of origin. And it is in this context that we can strengthen and empower ourselves. And the paper is calling on us to use these constructs to help understand and analyze the situation in which we find ourselves. Not a situation in which we should feel permanent dependence, but a situation in which we could feel that we could rely on our resilience, build up our globalization from within, and take our rightful places globally. Thank you very much.